LoToJa.
LoToJa.
LoToJa, Logan to Jackson.
This big race happening on a Saturday, over 200 miles from Logan to Jackson Hole.
Starts in Logan, Utah, and then goes through Utah into Idaho, back out of Idaho into Wyoming, and ends in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
It's a big day in the saddle. It's just about 10,000 feet of vertical climbing over 200 miles. So yeah, big day.
9,000 feet of elevation over the course of the race with 3 really marked climbs.
If you haven't Googled it, it's about 206 miles. It is 206 miles. It's not about. And it has 3 mountain passes in it.
You got to have a lot of miles under your belt, have your nutrition really dialed in.
The longest one-day USAC-sanctioned race in America.
You think of your job is to pedal a bike, but it's really to eat and drink.
That it's easy to blow yourself up on those climbs, then you just have that long dragging section coming in for 100 miles that if you've blown yourself up, it would be terrible.
I don't know if I can do much more to hype it up, guys. LoToJa, been talking about it a lot, been working, a lot harder than I have in the previous years on the bike to prepare for this race. This is the day before, driving up to Logan. My wife was nice enough to run support for me and a couple guys on the team. This is the day before, getting registered and met the team at the start. We ended up staying at this Airbnb really close to the start line, and so our start time was one of the first ones. We started at 5:42, and so I just woke up and grabbed the bike out of the back of the car, let my wife sleep in a bit, and rode over to the start line.
Been raining on and off all night, but looks like we got some clear skies. So let's get racing. Toby, Jason.
Hey, there we are. We got the action photo.
Steve, Ryan, Will. We're done. Go. Hey. Dude.
Oh, wow. What's up, dude? Hey there. Dude, gonna ride today? Probably a long way. Maybe 200 miles.
I had 8 teammates in this race with me. Typically, I don't think LoToJa likes to have so many teammates in one heat. But we signed up for this race. It was basically 2 races in one heat. It was the category 1, 2, 3, 4 Masters 35 plus and 1, 2, 3, 4 45 plus. So about half of us raced in the 35 age group, half of us raced in the 45 age group, and we raced in the same heat. And the reason that we did that, number one, we wanted to ride together, but we thought it also gave us better chances of getting more of us on the podium because they had a podium for each age group. The first hour and a half of the race, it's fairly flat. Still kind of dark, so everybody's just kind of warming up. No one's really trying to attack. Everybody realizes it's a huge day in the saddle, and so no one's really trying to make any moves at this point. About an hour and a half in, it just starts getting light, and we start seeing those clouds in front of us. So a lot of us had been watching the forecast the night before, figured there might be a little bit of rain, but not a big deal. I even took off my vest at the start line, and soon after that, this is kind of a reenactment of how I felt.
Hey, I'm meteorologist Chris Tomer. One more update for LoToJa, which takes place this Saturday between Logan and Jackson. Chance of some light rain showers, and you can see the green.
Light
Logan,
rain showers, no big
all the
deal.
way up into parts of Idaho, so that initial part of the ride could have rain showers.
Oh, just the initial part of the ride? No big deal. Whoa, Chris, you said light rain showers, bro. What is this? This is not light. So the problem with this rain is it did come down really hard for a bit. I mean, it was like within 5 minutes of it coming down, my shoes were completely soaked all the way through, like all the way to my toes. I couldn't see through my glasses. It kind of looked like this when I was looking through them. And I would literally take them off and like try to lick the lenses clean, and that just made it worse. And then it would stop raining for a bit, but then you're following the wheel in front of you and they're just kicking up water. So it was on and off for like 4 hours. And like I said, even when it wasn't raining, it felt like it was, just because you're following the wheel in front of you. And I mean, there's just tons and tons of water coming off the road. So right before we go into the first climb, which is Strawberry Summit, there's a couple things that are just a lot different than any other type of race you're going to do. 200 miles, we did it in just over 9 hours. And so one thing you have to take into consideration is potty breaks, right? And with this race, I've done it before, and a lot of the guys that I ride with have done it a lot of times. And there's always kind of been an unwritten agreement amongst the peloton that you're going to pull off and go to the bathroom. And even if you don't need to go to the bathroom, you're going to soft pedal and allow everybody to do their business and then jump back on and then proceed with their race, right? So before we hit Strawberry, a lot of us did that, but 2 guys decided to take advantage of 58 dudes on the side of the road peeing, and they started going off up the road and put a big gap on us before that first climb, Strawberry. The climbs are very decisive in this race. They're kind of front-loaded. So we're about 50 miles in. We're hitting the first and longest climb. Still early on, so I think everybody's still riding within themselves and not going too hard, but still definitely a lot harder than, for instance, the race that I was in last year in a lower category. So my whole deal was sag the climb, be at the front when the climb starts, and then allow whoever wants to pass me throughout the climb as long as I'm staying connected to that main front group. And so you can kind of see right here, I mean, it's fairly strung out and I'm towards the back, but still not too worried, still definitely riding within myself and just trying not to burn a match this early on in the race. This is actually my effort going up Strawberry, and part of the tricky part with Strawberry is there's a fault summit right there in the middle. And so once you get there, you think, oh sweet, got to the top, when in reality, you're about halfway. With this being the first of 3 climbs, that fault summit gets some people. And so if you're not hanging on to that front group, you're either going to have to make up some time on the descent and bridge up, or you're going to have a really long day. Last year, I actually got dropped on this first climb, and I ended up bridging up about an hour later. But by that point, I used so many matches to do it that my race was essentially over. This is the effort here. My FTP right now is about 355. My average watts for this climb was 327. And it was a 35-minute climb. So I didn't want to do that work, but I did definitely want to stay with this front group and kind of recover on the descent and off the back of Strawberry. I will wear this with a badge of honor. I will definitely say that I was the biggest guy coming over the top of Strawberry with the race leaders. So when we hit the descent, I mean, descending, I've always kind of looked at it, especially for LoToJa, as my insurance policy. If I get dropped in the climb, there's a decent chance that I can super tuck and catch on with everybody. So once I hit this descent, I passed all these guys and we were flying. I mean, I didn't put my power and speed just because this video is going to be so choppy. But I think I definitely hit, over 45 miles an hour. In the rain, it was a little sketchy, especially going around some of these corners. I mean, they weren't super sharp, but you can just see the water coming off the guy's wheel in front of me. So I got in front of him and came around this big bend and just kind of hoped that my tires were going to do all right. They were brand new, so they had a good amount of grip on them still. But this was a super fun descent. We still had those fools that broke bro code by taking off when everybody was whizzing. And so I figured the faster I can get down this descent, the better to get some time back from those guys. So we get down the backside of Strawberry, and fortunately, I think all of my teammates actually bridged up. So even though they didn't quite get over the top of Strawberry with the leaders, all of them can descend like madmen and all bridged up. This is kind of the flat area between Strawberry and the first feed zone, which is in Montpelier, 70 miles into the race.
Dude, I'm shivering, bro. Woo! I'm trying to decide if the arm warmers are making it worse or helping it all.
A couple miles out from Montpelier, I just started shaking. My lips were shaking, my teeth were chattering, my arms were shaking. And you got Toby, my teammate right here. He's a smaller guy, and I could just see him shaking on the bike. Most of the people in the field were. To really illustrate it, I'll just give you a little hint about how cold I was. But, Some guys were smart enough to wear a jacket. We didn't. I took my vest off right before the start, which was really dumb. And I was only thinking like, shoot, man, we're only a couple hours into this race and I cannot get my body to warm up. Coming into the first feed zone, I passed the people that were supporting me for this first feed stop. And I go down like 20 yards, realize that I'm in the wrong spot and I have to turn around.
Where's our stuff at?
Yeah, where's the bottles? Where's the bottles?
Right here. There's rags here stuff.
If you're good at this, you're in and out within like 10 seconds. So that definitely wasn't me. I mean, you can see me trying to get all the trash out. I put a bento box on my bike and I put new bottles on. And then plus I had a GoPro because I really wanted to do this video. So the people that were supporting us, it was Steve's in-laws, were nice enough to hand me a new fresh GoPro with a new battery. And I was fooling with that. And all of a sudden I look up and there's people way up the road. So jumped on the bike, had to bridge up not one, not two, but 3 groups in order to get kind of back up with the front of the race. And that is right before the second climb, which is Geneva. Same strategy going into this climb. Wanted to be at the front or as close to the front as I could at the base of the climb and then just sag back as it pitches up. This is the shortest of the 3 passes that we would go over that day. And I wasn't too concerned with this one. More than anything, the big focus here was just conserving as much energy as I could. I remembered it from last year. I'd actually, like I said, I got dropped and then caught on right before Montpelier where we just had that feed zone. And then as we went up the top of Geneva, I actually got dropped again, but then was able to bridge up on the descent. So it wasn't really long enough to get like a really solid break, so I wasn't really worried about that. And then I knew that if I sagged far enough back that I could just make it up on the descent. I was fairly happy with the effort on this one. My whole goal was do the least amount of work as possible while not getting dropped. So this is the segment here, only 2 miles, only 450 feet of climbing. And as we go back, I mean, you can see me dropping further and further back. Wasn't worried at all. As you can see, power, I was actually really happy with that. I mean, this is basically sweet spot for me, and the effort was only 9 minutes, so just about right. The descent over the back of Geneva, the heavens opened up, the sun came out, finally able to warm up, and this is kind of where the day got a little bit better. Just kidding, it got worse. Next up is Salt. It's the last pass of the race. It's the steepest. And honestly, it's always the most decisive. Oh, check this guy out right here, peeing off his bike. So envious of him. And his buddy's like, hey man, need a hand? Not sure what he's reaching out for, but that's a good friend. This is one that I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it was going to be tough. I knew that there were a few guys in our race that were really going to push it up the top of Salt and make it hurt for everyone else. And I just didn't know where I stood. I didn't know how many matches I had left, but I knew that I needed to do whatever it took to stay with them. So there was really no conserving at this point. I mean, you can even see right here, we're a third of the way up the hill and I'm already almost off the back. I look behind me at this point and realize that no one behind me is going to bridge up. And so I have to stay connected to basically this lead group if I want to make it over the top and still stay connected with them. With Salt, I mean, the biggest thing is not so much how steep it is or how long the effort is. I mean, you can see here it averages a little less than 5.5 and it's 658 feet of climbing, but it comes at mile 100 basically. And for the climbers, they're going to make it as hard as they can for everybody else because this is where it gets really decisive for them and they potentially have a chance to win or make a winning break. This is my effort, 11.5 minutes. I mean, my power, that is my threshold, exactly. And it was only 11.5 minutes, but like I said, it comes at mile 100, and you can hear me breathing. I was exhausted, and if you look in front, up the road, it's basically, there's a gap forming, right? So you got these 2 guys in front of me, and then a gap of the leaders. And so at this point I was getting super nervous. So yeah, I was tired and I was getting nervous of getting dropped, but I have a huge ego. So I moved over to the side of the road to the right because I saw the photographer right here on the side of the road, and I definitely didn't want to miss the picture. This guy looks behind me like, bro, did you really just move over there to make sure you get a picture? And I was like, yeah, bro, I did. If you didn't catch that, I said stay. So there's levels of pain that I go through on the bike, and when I start talking to myself, that's one of the highest levels. But when I start talking to myself and I can't even put full sentences together, that's peak. And so I can't even say like, stay with that wheel or stay with the front group. All I can tell myself is stay. So as you can tell, that wasn't hard for me. I knew I was going to do it the whole time. I didn't need to like talk myself into it. Whatever, not a big deal. Got over that last climb with the leaders. It's something that, I mean, no big deal, right? Honestly, listening to myself is pretty hilarious. I had to speak that one into existence for sure. It wasn't happening without that. Once we got down off the descent, the lead group here, there's probably 10 or 15 of us. We started working in an echelon pretty quick, and we probably had a little bit of a tailwind because I looked down at my computer at one point. I think we were doing like 33 miles an hour. And at that point, I figured the group behind us probably wasn't going to catch up. Got to give a shout out to my buddy Doug right here. All these Midweli guys, or Midweli, they're a team out of Utah. All of them super nice dudes. Always really good to ride with them. I went down to their team camp in the spring, and all of them are super friendly dudes. We rode with them for, most of the race. They were in the lead group the entire day. All right, guys, if you stuck this long with the video, thank you. We're getting down to it. This is going into the last feed zone, and I'm sorry my camera got shaken and it was kind of pointing down. But I definitely didn't want to do what I did last time, fumbling around with food. My hands weren't really working because it was so cold. So I wanted to get in and out super fast. And I got a little bit flustered. I had my friend Greg and my wife here.
A bunch of us are dropped here. I'm good. Gotta go faster. Thanks. Okay, food right here.
On your head. Dude, what happened to those boys?
Dude, it was gnarly coming over salt.
So the biggest thing that I told my wife is just be sure to give me the GoPro. There it is in her hand. All I had to do was reach out and grab it. I already took the other one off. But I was so flustered. I just told Greg to give me a push, and I was off. And then I looked down a little bit later, and my wife looked in her hand. After carrying a GoPro up all 3 of the climbs for 140 miles, I forget to take the last GoPro out of my wife's hands for the last 60 miles. And I apologize. Obviously that's kind of the most exciting part of the race is the finish, but I still want to tell this story. More than anything, it's like therapy for me because I just have to get it off my chest, I feel like. But anyway, so leave the feed zone, and I quickly realized, forgot the GoPro, but whatever, I got to focus on the race. I needed to go to the bathroom at that point, and so I did something I never thought I could, and I peed myself on the bike. I'd seen it done before. I always thought it was disgusting. I tried to do this. I tried to pee off the side, and it just didn't work. And so peed myself, whatever, and it was really gross. It was more than I thought it would be. And then 5 minutes later, someone goes to the front of the race and says, hey guys, why don't we pull off and do a neutral pee stop? So as all these guys were sitting there peeing, I was just sitting there with my right shoe just sopping wet. Anyways, jump back on the bikes, and we are, like I said, 50 miles to the finish. And at this point I'm looking at, okay, who's going to be the sprinters in this race? And I had shamelessly done some stalking before the race, and so on Strava and then on some like race result websites, I kind of knew who had been, winning races, who were some of the sprinters. And so I kind of had 3 guys picked out, and partially from the stalking, but mostly the biggest factor is calf size. So Calf size is a huge factor when I look at who my competition is. And like I said, I had 3 guys picked out that I thought would be important to look out for. Number 1 is Joe from Zone 5. I'd raced against him in Utah. If you haven't seen a video on my channel of wheel exploding, that's Joe. This guy, Alex, he had been resting most of the second half of the race, kind of off the back, protected. And so super smart move on his part. Figured he'd sprint. And then this guy, Billy, who I have a mutual friend, and he'd mentioned that he's going to be a hitter for sure. So those 3 guys were the kind of the guys that I figured I wanted to keep an eye on as we started getting closer to the finish. But before we got there, there was 3 sections of road construction, and it basically was 3 sections of gravel. And so over every section, I was trying to be as ginger as possible. The last one was fairly loose, and then it actually had us coming over this bridge that was like wood. And after that, it was kind of, in my opinion, kind of home free. I mean, I was super stoked at this point, still with the race leaders. There's one little riser that we hit, and right when we hit it, a few guys kind of pushed the pace to see if they can break away. I stepped to sprint, and I started cramping a little bit, so I realized that I needed to drink a lot more water and eat in order to maybe hopefully get those cramps to go away before the finish. But once again, super excited on my positioning at this point. I'd gone through the rain. I'd gotten over all the climbs with the skinny guys. I was nailing my nutrition. At least I felt like it. A little bit of cramping, not a big deal. I'd gotten over the gravel, and I peed my pants. So all I had to do was sprint. That's the only thing left to really just round out this race. So we come around this corner, and we're in this area where it's really, really smooth tarmac. And like 3 guys launch off the front, and I figured that's the race winning move right there. So I go with it. A couple other guys go with it, and all of a sudden there's 10 of us, all of them in my group, and I'm just drooling. We just shelled more than half of the field, and now we were putting time into the guys behind us. And I'm looking around. All 3 of those sprinters that I had kind of identified were definitely there. In addition to a few of the climber guys, skinnier dudes. No offense to them, but I figured this is great. We got 10 miles left, 10, 12 miles left in this race, and there's 5 podium spots. 3 of these guys I know are going to sprint. I can hang with them. I can probably come around some of these climbers, hopefully. And so I figured one of those podium spots was mine. And literally drooling at this point, I look down at my back tire, and it's flat. I'm riding the rim at this point, and I honestly, my heart just sank. Jumped off the bike, threw CO2 in it as fast as I could, got back on it. There was no like leaking air, no holes that I could see. I look up, and I can still see the race leaders going away, and so I push it for a little bit, realize that I'm not going to be able to do it on my own, fall back to the field behind me, and I kind of lied to them. I said, guys, if we work together, we can bridge that gap. And everybody just looks at me like I'm an idiot. And one guy actually said, hey, dude, I would, but I just bridged up, and there's no way I'm going to be able to make that bridge. So I have a decision to make. I decided to just go for it and try to make the bridge. I'm doing well over threshold for the first couple minutes, but I mean, we're mile 190 plus at this point, and I just couldn't sustain it. And so fall back down to like sweet spot, just keep pedaling best I could, looking back every once in a while, realizing that I have a good gap on the field. I wasn't going to get swallowed up. And luckily, a couple of guys bridged up at this point and from a different heat. And so I just jumped on their wheel and kind of rode in with them for the next couple miles. And honestly, at this point, I was just so angry. I literally considered offering the guys that I was just riding their wheel $100 each if they could bridge me up. But I figure that's not very sportsmanlike of me. But anyways, I'm going to show some pictures here of the finish. Once again, I mean, I don't know what would have happened in the sprint, right? I mean, I could have cramped up and not be able to do anything. But this is the finish. One of the guys, Alex, he ended up getting a little bit of a gap off the leaders. He finished first. And then this is the field sprint. I mean, I don't want to. I think I could have stood up and sprinted. I mean, these guys are all seated, which, I mean, who knows, right? But I'm just really disappointed that I didn't have the opportunity to do that. Still, I mean, it's a fun race. I jump off my bike, I come around the side, and my wife's sitting there like, "Oh, good job," and I literally almost cried. I was so mad, and you can see it right here. I'll put up the picture, and I literally have a frowny face going across the finish line. These are the results. I got 10th place. Came in a minute and a half after the leaders. I'm super happy with the effort that I was able to do. Like I said, I honestly was really happy with the fact that I made it over all 3 climbs with the race leaders. I understand that's how racing goes. Sometimes you get flats. I mean, you race 190 miles of a 200-mile race and you get a flat 10 miles from the finish, and it's just bad luck. But I want to give a huge shout out to my team. I mean, we've been riding a lot this year, and I've been doing a lot of early morning intervals with them, and definitely wouldn't have had the fitness that I did without these guys. And guys, LoToJa, it's an experience. It's an awesome experience. I won't say it's fun, but it's something that is super challenging, and I'll be back. Not sure exactly when that's going to be. Literally, like, this week has been a roller coaster of emotions. Like, one day I want to get on my bike and do it again, like right then, and then the next day I want to throw my bike in the trash because I'm just kind of upset about how it all happened. In conclusion, huge shout out to Snake River Photo. Didn't buy any of the photos, that's why you saw the watermarks on them still, but they did a fantastic job. Next ride is the Boise Gravel Gala, and our company Proof Eyewear is one of the sponsors. Super excited to be participating in that, and that will be in a few weeks, so keep an eye out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with it, guys. I apologize on the GoPro handoff mishap, but you guys are number one, and we'll see you next time.